Here we go. Okay. Keraf'ili Israel v'nigla avon Ephraim v'ra'ot Shomron ki pa'alu shaker v'ganav yavo pashat gedud bachutz. When I would heal Israel, the guilt of Ephraim reveals itself, and the wickedness of Shomron, of Samaria. For they've acted treacherously with thieves breaking in and the bands raiding outside. So we're getting more in this chapter into the details and the imagery of what the Israelites did wrong, right? So it's an interesting opening that when I would heal Israel, right, Dafka, when you start healing, that's when all of the bad part comes out, right? You could think it would be the opposite perhaps, but that's really when you see all of the terrible things coming out. Here, like when the commentator says, Derech rofe mumche legalot hamaka, right? So it's the ways of an expert doctor or healer to find the source of the wound and take out all of the rotten parts of it. You have to find the source, right, and then remove it in order to actually heal the wound properly. And so that's what we're doing here. Okay, uval yomru lil vavam kol ra'atam zacharti ata savavum alelehem neged panai hayu. And they do not consider that I remembered all their wickedness, why their misdeeds have been all around them. Anyone have a different translation for that? Janet, I think you might, I don't know if you're trying to talk, but I think you're muted, Janet.
Okay. I have they do not say in their hearts that I remember all their evils. Now their deeds have surrounded them. They were before my face.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see here, right? They add that at the bottom. They've been ever before me. Okay, beautiful. Right. I like that translation. I think it's more precise, right? That they don't say in their hearts that, oh, God like remembers all of the bad things. You know, the lies we tell ourselves, right? And the basic truths that we deny ourselves. And that's part of what's happening here. So of course, God says, like, they're right in front of me. Of course, I know what they are and I can see them. Okay, bera'atam yisamchu melech ubechachashehem sarim. In malice, they make a king merry and officials in treachery. Would love for someone to jump in with a different translation if you have.
With their evil, they gladden the king, and with their falsehoods, officers.
Okay. Great. Yeah, so this is part of what they're doing is they're not, as this commentator points out, the lo rak she'einam ne'enashim ma'asehem hara'im ki im lahefech, right? It's not just that they aren't being punished for their bad deeds, but it's the opposite, that it's actually making the king happy, right? Bringing joy. Kulam mina'afim kemo tanur bo'era me'ofe yishbot me'ir milush batzek ad chumsato. So now we're using a dough imagery. So they commit adultery, all of them, like an oven fired by a baker who desists from stoking only from the kneading of the dough to its leavening. All right. You might have different translations for this, and I definitely am very curious if you do.
I've got who rests from the kneading of the dough until it's leavening.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have anything about a city in here? Or anything like that? No.
Yeah, I have the same, that's similar to what
Okay,
Wendy.
great, beautiful. Okay, good.
If it was city, how would you read it?
Yeah, I might be thinking of a different pasuk actually, I think. But that, yeah.
No,
I
it
saw
does say
that.
me'ir, but none of the English translations use that word.
Yeah. Here it says Yishpot alfeh mehiyot er, right? That the baker is ceasing to be awake. Yeah. He's like, it's more just like, it's more like checking out is the phrase that we use, right? He's just not paying attention. Sorry, what was someone gonna say?
I was just going to say, I've got a note from Targum. They all desire to commit adultery with their friends' wives. They burn like an oven that the bakers heated. Therefore, they will be exiled quickly from their cities. In the same manner, they think to carry out their evil desires.
Interesting that like the exile is used with the imagery of baking and dough, right? Because that's all like the exodus from Egypt is also, that's like part of the metaphor. All right, good, great. Okay, Yom Malkeinu Hechelu Sarim Chamat Miyain Mashach Yado Et Lotetzim. The day they made our king sick and officials with the poison of wine, he gave his hand to traitors. So, anyone have any different translations here, especially with pronouns?
I have on the day of our king, the officers became ill from the heat of wine, and he withdrew his hand to be with scoffers.
Aha, okay, great. I welcome any other translations and also comments, because it's not clear what is going on in this pasuk.
A comment from Rashi. At that time, the king withdrew his hand from those who are good and righteous and joined instead with the scoffers. Alternatively, he withdrew his hand from being involved in matters of state and joined instead in the activities of the cynic. That's from Metzudos David.
Okay.
The sages interpret the king as referring to the King of Kings and render, he withdrew his hand from scoffers. They thereby derive that scoffers are among those people who don't merit to receive divine presence.
Great, beautiful. Yeah, it's really not clear. My book has a ton of commentary. I won't go through all of it now, but lots and lots of commentary on like different ways of understanding the king and what's going on here. Okay. Ki kervu katanur libam be'arbam kol halayla yashen ofehem boker hu boer ke'esh lehava. For they approach their ambush with their hearts like an oven. Through the night, their baker has slept. In the morning, it flares up like a blazing fire.
So I have the pronoun in the morning, he burns up.
Interesting. Like the baker burns up?
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I also have in the morning he burns like a blazing fire. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm just reading real fast. Very interesting.
And the note on this from Rashi is, just as a baker goes to sleep after he fires the oven for the morning's work, so their baker, called the inciter in verse 4, devises plans and rests until it is time to carry them out. And that's from Rashi.
Yeah, it's interesting to read it like that because I feel like the most shot reading is just that, the oven is kind of quiet through the night, right? And then in the morning, you really turn it on and get it going. And yet they're reading it as the baker instead.
Steinsaltz reads it like you do.
What does he say?
For that in the morning the fire burns like a large blazing fire, and during while he was sleeping it was low, kept low.
Okay, great.
Kept low on purpose, I guess.
Right. I mean, why do you, right, you want to keep the fire, but you don't need it blazing. And that's why the baker's sleeping. Yeah. It's very interesting, right? Because if the baker is who's the baker, of course, right? That's the question. Is it God? Is it like the sinfulness? It's yeah, there's different ways. I just lost my comment about this, but yes, different ways certainly of understanding all of this. Okay, let's keep going. Kulam yechamu katanur ve'achlu et shoftehem kol machehem nafalu ein kore bahem elai. They all get heated like an oven and devour their rulers. None of them calls to me. All their kings have fallen by their hand. In Korebahem Eli. Anyone have a different Well,
I've got they've devoured their judges with a small j, so not a reference to a me with a capital.
Okay. I think so what the translation does is restructure the pasuk a little bit, right? Where it's Kol Machehem Nafalu is at the end in the translation, but it's actually the second to last clause in the pasuk. And then the last clause is in Korei Bahem Elai, none of them calls to me. So the JPS flips it. Does anyone have a different translation for Kulam Yechamu Katanur? They all get heated like an oven.
I think we all
I
have.
don't have any of my translations with me, but I was thinking about the Achlut of them is what the first time that people criticized the judge was Lot and the people of Sodom, saying that you're not doing what we appointed you to do, so you're of no use to us anymore. Like,
Mm.
I have a comment for
Yeah.
heated like an oven. The temptation excites their passion to sin as a burning oven.
What's as a burning oven?
Their desire to sin
Oh,
is
I
like a
see.
burning
I see.
oven.
Yeah, yeah. He says here, "Yiyu chamim me'esh hasin'ah." They'll be warm from the fire of hatred, or hakin'ah ve'te'ava l'shilton, the jealousy and the desire, the craving for power. And therefore, that's why they'll cut down their rulers. Does anyone not have the translation flipped of none of them calls to me, all their kings have fallen by the hand?
I have judges instead of rulers, which just to back up a bit, and a reference to the Sanhedrin because they protested against the evil and then they slew them.
Lovely. Okay. So does anyone not flip the end of 7 in the English?
The end of 7.
Yeah, meaning I don't totally understand why the JPS flipped none of them calls to me and all their kings have fallen by their hand, right? Because it's opposite in the Hebrew, the opposite order. So I don't understand why the JPS flipped it in the translation. So that's why I was curious if anyone else did.
Yeah, no, this ends with none of them calls to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Steinsaltz again comes in with no one among them calls to me, and the monarchs may change, but the behavior remains the same. Because he's also commenting that these kings only lasted 2 generations, and their offspring were not successful. They were
Right, yeah.
able to grow.
Okay.
There's also a quote from Rashi. Their passionate wickedness has brought divine retribution upon their judges and kings, but they have not learned their lesson.
The
only reason
like who is calling, right? Who is calling out to God also, or not calling out to God?
Yeah, they're not.
It's probably
I think they flipped is because of the word ruler, and therefore they want to associate that with God. But I don't think it's a good enough reason.
Yeah. Right. This has a couple different opinions. One says they called out, they cried, right? They reached out to other nations and not to God, right? Of course, one of the things that angers God a lot is that during all these horrible things with the Assyrians, etc., that the Israelites turned to the other nations into treaties and things like that for help when they should have just turned to God. Okay. Ephraim ba'amim hu yitbolal, Ephraim haya uga bli hafucha. So Ephraim is among the peoples, he is rotting away. Ephraim is like a cake incapable of turning. So we've got some interesting metaphors here. Where'd you go?
Where does the rotting away come from in the Hebrew?
It's not roughing away. I think they're translating itbolel as roughing. And I think itbolel is not roughing, it's confused, I guess.
Oh, like bilbul.
Yeah, I would think if I by name we itbolel, we maybe assimilates.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that's very interesting. Here, that's exactly what my guy has. He says, Ye'arev, right? Yitarev, excuse me, that he's gonna be like mixed in. Like solet bilula bashemen is the example, right? Grain mixed with oil.
Right, in our translations, intermingled with the nations.
Right, yeah, mingled also.
Okay.
Yeah, I have that too.
He is rotting away. Where did they get this from? I don't know.
Well, if you look at stein salts, while the cake not, Ephraim is like a cake not turned while baking on the coals and is therefore undercooked on the top and burnt on the bottom. Nothing good or useful emerges from the Israelite oven.
Beautiful, right? Yeah, great. I like that. That's a good expression. Both burnt and raw at the same time. Okay. So I really can't explain where the JPS gets this he's running away from. I don't know what to do with it. I think it makes more sense to say that Ephraim is amongst the other nations and intermingling, especially if you say that right before this, Ein Koreh Bahem Elai, that no one amongst them calls out to me. Why? Because they're calling out to help to other nations, right? So this seems to kind of, it makes more sense together like that. All right. Achlu zarim kocho vehu lo yada, gam seva zarka bo vehu lo yada. So strangers have consumed his strength, but he has taken no notice. Also, mold is scattered over him, but he has taken no notice. What other translations does anyone have for seva?
Old age instead of mold.
Okay, exactly, right? Old age, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so here they say like the Akkadian, so I guess they get mold from, if you look at the Akkadian, it's similar to the word, but other people say gray hairs, right? Seva is like elderliness. I don't know if the word is.
I have weakness.
You have what?
Weakness.
Really?
Which doesn't make sense, yeah. Because Seva is like old, right?
Yeah.
Some of the white hair.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, huh. Okay. Does anyone have mold besides JPS?
No,
No. Okay.
of old age
Yeah, that's what I'm just wondering.
was cast upon him, but he did not know.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
It looks like there is a little H above it. Is that the footnote?
Yeah, so that's where it said that they chose mold because it's like the Akkadian word shibu, I guess, which means rot, more mold, in contrast to gray hairs. So I guess for some reason JPS decided that the Akkadian word made more sense than gray hairs. I wish they explained why. I don't know why. Okay. Also, like to scatter mold, it's just a weird image. It doesn't really make sense. All right. Ve'ana ge'on Yisrael b'fanav ve'lo shavu el Hashem Elohehem ve'lo bikshuhu b'chol zot. So though Israel's pride has been humbled before his very eyes, right, b'fanav, right in front of him, they have not turned back to their God, the Eternal One, whom they have not sought, despite everything. I think that translation is pretty straightforward, right? Like that's why I like the idea of gray hair also, because it's something visible. I'm not sure what the image of mold being scattered all over you is supposed to mean. Is that something that everyone can see, right? But here certainly Sevaz, he understands it means gray hair. Well, so yeah, that is something everyone can see. And that's something that you notice about yourself also. And yet somehow everyone can see it but you, right? And so now that the writing is on the wall and still they don't turn back. So Vayhi Ephraim Kiyona Pota Ein Lev Mitzrayim Kara'u Ashur Halachu. Instead, Ephraim has acted like a silly dove with no mind, right? Kiyona Pota Ein Lev. They have appealed to Egypt and they have gone to Assyria, right? They call out to Egypt and they actually went to Assyria. So what's this Yonah Pota Ein Lev?
Well, first of all, isn't a heart? Isn't Lev heart as opposed to a mind?
Right. They used to think that your mind was heart, right? We associate with emotions. They associate with intellect. But yes. Does anyone have a different translation for that?
Yeah, a foolish dove.
A foolish dove.
Yeah.
I actually have without a heart.
Oh.
A silly dove without a heart.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's what I have. It's a silly dove without a heart.
With no understanding.
Right, here it says that right, she doesn't know like what's good for her, what's bad. I wonder why they chose a dove.
I have a note here, like birds, they flew into the trap of reliance on foreign power.
No, that's next verse.
Okay.
But I was going to say, like, a cat is said to never go into a place that they can't figure out how to get out. So, but birds, we've had doves fly into our house all the time when we were living in Beersheba. So, it seems that that's a image that people could relate to.
Well, so tell us about that. What happens when a bird flies into your house? I believe in her. I've never had that happen.
You have to open all the windows and basically try to shoo it towards any of them and hope for the best.
Okay, that's funny.
Yeah, that actually happened to us when we were living in Seattle at one point.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And it was a bird that flew into the house and it just, kept shooing it, till we could finally get it to leave because it kept flying into the flying to the glass of the window rather than,
Oh
no. So, to me, that's a very graphic image.
That's funny.
Maybe also, a dove connotes peace. They were so looking for peace that they didn't look in the right places with their own actions, and they were making bad choices because they were so, so concerned with, just being okay.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. Right. There's a naivety also, right? That it's like, why is she fota, right? Why it's silly. Because she's foolish enough to think that she can trust them. Beautiful. I love that. Joyce, you have your hand up, metaphorically.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to read what Robert Alter has to say.
Ooh, yes, please.
Like a foolish, senseless dove, it is a dove that lacks the homing instinct. Thus Ephraim seeks out Egypt and Assyria. The implication is rather than God.
Beautiful.
Lacks the homing instinct.
Oh, I like that. Great. Terrific. Thank you. All right. So, Ka'asher yelechu efros alehem rishti ke'of hashamayim oridim aisirem keshema la'adatam. All right, when they go, I will spread my net over them. I will bring them down like birds of the sky. I will chastise them when I hear their bargaining. I would chastise the meaning of Hebrew uncertain. Okay, that's all JPS can give us. All right, well, so the first part is fairly clear, right? Wherever they go, I'll spread my net over them, trapping them. Like birds of the sky, I'll bring them down. And then what do we have for this last part, these last three words?
Will afflict them as has been heard by their congregation.
Yeah, I have the same thing.
Great.
Steinsaltz agrees.
Fascinating. Okay.
They will chastise them. I will chastise them.
You have chastise also?
Yeah.
So that's very interesting because my guy offers two explanations. One is Yisurim, right? I will make them suffer. And then he says also could mean that you literally tie them down to the net so that they can't escape. Which is neither of those things. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Isarim or Isarim is to tie them.
Right, okay, beautiful, great.
What's wrong with bargaining?
I mean, it just...
What does that mean when I hear them bargaining? What are they bargaining over?
Well, right. So it sounds like no one else had that translated that way, right? Does anyone else have bargaining in there?
No.
Yeah.
That's been heard by their congregation.
Yeah.
Right. As is Ada, right? From Ada.
Right.
So
Yeah.
As I've told their group before.
Right.
Do you have any sense of where they would have gotten bargaining from?
I mean, if I do a free translation, it will be as birds. It's not just birds, it's also chickens. From the sky, I bring them down. And then Esaram b'shama le'adatam, and I will tie them keshema. I'm not sure how to translate keshama in here, if it's to tie them. Le'adatam. Or maybe keshema is that I hear them.
Right.
That's where the bargaining comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe at that point I'll hear what they have to say.
Well, Alter doesn't have that. He says, I will bind them as their kinfolk listen. Now that's again a conjectural translation, but nothing about bargaining and Alter.
Yeah.
I have the congregation being the ones that are hearing.
Okay, same idea there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what Joyce said is probably closer to the Hebrew text.
Okay, very interesting.
So I'm not sure where they got bargaining.
Yeah,
Again,
I really wonder.
yeah.
Okay, well, so even though my guy had the first one ending here, we still have some 10 minutes, so let's just finish up the parak. Oy lahem ki nadedu mimeni, shod lahem ki pashu vi ve'anochi eftem vehema dibru alai kezavim. So woe to them for straying from me, destruction to them for rebelling against me, for I was their redeemer, and yet they've plotted treason against me. Does anyone have ve'anochi eftem, I was their redeemer? Does anyone have I will be their redeemer as it's in the future tense?
I have I would redeem them.
Yeah.
Condition.
Yeah, I would also.
Would redeem them, but they have spoken lies about me.
Alter says, shall I redeem them?
Oh.
Shall I redeem them when they have spoken against me? Lies?
Yeah, that's it. My guy says that too. Bitmiha, right? With like, it's almost rhetorical, right? We were surprised, right? And I don't hit them, really? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, why should I do this?
Yeah, totally.
Why should I save them when they're treasonous?
Very interesting. Okay. Ve'lo zaku elai belibam ki yelilu al mishkavotam al dagan v'tirosh yitgoraru yasuru vi. But they did not cry out to me sincerely, right? That's where you get ve'lo zaku elai belibam. They didn't call out to me in their hearts, right? So that's where you get sincerely. Instead, they lay wailing. I would have translated that more as like because they wail in their beds.
Yes.
Do you have that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, great. As they debauch over new grain and wine, they are faithless to me.
Yeah, they gather together for grain and wine, yet they turn away from me.
Okay.
So, I mean, usually grain and wine are offerings, right? Here, they're just it's like they're instruments of debauchery rather than offerings to God.
Yeah.
Well, these offerings can be made to foreign gods as well. Alter says, they wailed upon their couches over grain and new wine. They gashed themselves. And he says, he compares it to the gashing of the prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel. So the idea of praying to foreign gods includes cutting oneself, which of course is abhorrent to the Jewish sensibility. So again, the point here, I think, is unfaithfulness to the one true God, and rather looking everywhere else, foreign entanglements, other gods, whatever, anything except God.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. All right. Well, so now it seems like 15 comes to respond to that. And I'll read it with the emphasis that the JPS has. Ve'ani sarti chizakti zrotam ve'elai ichashvu ra. Right? I braced them. I strengthened their arms, and they plot evil against me. Like part of this tmiha. I'm going to save them, right? They did all this bad stuff to me. I like the humanizing of God. I don't mean that in the radical sense, right? But of just saying, like pointing out the complete absurdity of all of this. Okay. Yashuvu lo al hayu kekeshet remiya yiplu b'cherev sarehem za'am lashonam zo lagam be'eretz Mitzrayim. So they come back. They have been of no use. Like a slack bow, their officers shall fall by the sword because of the stammering of their tongues. Such shall be the results of their jabbering in the land of Egypt. All right. Please tell me someone else has a different translation.
Have they turned, but not to the one alone? They are like a deceptive bow. Their officers will fail by the sword, fall by the sword because of the fury of their tongues. This was their derision in the land of Egypt.
Okay. That helps. Anyone else?
Mine's close to Janet's.
Okay. All right. I'm just checking really fast if there's anything else that I wanted to add. All right. Well, yeah, more of the attacking, but I mean, I really do. I like here the insertion of the basic the common sense, right? There's so much of the theology and the heaviness of all of these things. And here's just like, think about it for a minute, right? Why would I be there for you? You've abandoned me over and over again. This just doesn't make any sense, right? So I think there's something to that of just like saying of a relationship, right? How do relationships fall apart when one person feels like the other isn't doing enough for them? And yeah, and so that's really what's going on here. It's like, this is totally one-sided, and no, I'm not going to do it. Any final comments from anyone?
There's a comments by Radak. Like a bow that seems to aim in one direction but shoots in another, Israel's fidelity to me was mercurial and short-lived. Their impudence in seeking help from Egypt caused their downfall and made them a laughingstock in Egypt.
Okay, interesting. Okay, great. All right, everyone, I'm going to stop the recording.